What was the best moment you've seen where the real world hit a spoiled rich kid? Spoiled rich kid showed up to school in a $325,000 sports car. He was showing off, lost control of the car, and drove it through a brick wall and totaled it. Dad buys a rich kid a Mercedes. It was pinkish, salmon colored, so the kid breached about it. Dad took it away, sold it, and never bought him another car. Rich brat had to buy his own. Local business owner puts son through college and more. When kid graduates with multiple degrees, dad decides to retire and turn over business to son. Son brings college cronies on board, has management all wear white cowboy hats and drive white pickups, begins revamping business. Dad comes out of retirement pronto, gets rid of son and cronies. Years later bankrolls son's run for state rep. The son lost. Dad dies and leaves business to daughter. Knew a rich kid whose parents bought a car for and he treated it like absolute garbage, purposely driving it really hard and generally abusing it. Confident in the notion that his parents would buy him the one he wanted after he destroyed the one they got him. Well, they didn't buy him another one, ever. He rode the city bus and bummed rides off of friends after that. He was the most entitled frocker I'd ever met. If he was over at your house, he would just help himself to whatever was in the fridge like it was some sort of paid buffet. This kid. He was a 17-year-old in my dad's hometown that was known for driving fast and being an all-around asshole on the road. He had multiple speeding tickets and a DUI on record. At 17. The DUI incident was actually a car crash that totaled his car and led to him having his jaw wired shut. So what do his parents do? They give him his license back and buy him a brand new car, which I'm pretty sure was a WRX, which crashed into a utility truck, killing himself, his sister and her friend while doing almost twice the speed limit on a residential road. Here's a switch. Highly successful local doctor, politician expects son to attend medical school and become doctor. Son opts out, gets job with new company called Costco, pumping gas. He's been with that company ever since. Just his regular pay raises and bonus checks give him a good life. He just didn't want the high stress life his dad had. Oh, I have one. I used to work at Starbucks and there was a girl that was just newly hired and in training. Mind you, she was 20 years old and her parents made her get a job. She grew up in a very wealthy family. On her first or second day, I had instructed her to do the dishes to help catch us up for closing. She looked at me with these lost eyes and told me she doesn't know how. Apparently she grew up with housemaids and literally has never cleaned a dish in her entire life. I had to teach her step by step how to clean a dish. About 10 years ago I was having a pint with a friend of mine. His family sit gold, I swear. I mentioned I was struggling with rent and bills while in college and he just said, "Get your mum to pay for it then, mate? She's disabled and we've never had real money." He instantly realized what he said and did feel bad about it. I think it was the first time he really understood that not everyone has their parents to lean on financially. Somewhat distant relative spent all of his university years and 20s partying hard with the approximately $100 to $120K allowance his rich company-owning father gave him each year. He'd travel the world each year, going to Bali, Thailand, Europe, every year Oktoberfest. Just rampaging. At 32 or so he decided to settle an upscale ski resort area of the US and open a business with his hot gold digger fiancée. When he went to transfer his money to his US bank account he noticed it only came to a few $1,000s. He angrily asked the bank worker why she hadn't transferred the entire amount, only to be told that that was the entire amount. His father had cut him off without saying anything and he just hadn't noticed. Absolute flatline. While working in a casino here in Las Vegas, a herd of girls came to my window, and one proceeded to tell me about her great birthday party itinerary that her dad had paid for her 18th birthday. With no adult in the party, just a bunch of teenage girls. Out in Vegas, where none of them could do anything because none of them were 21. I couldn't even check them into their reservation. They start yelling and screaming at me. I calmly call security, and security tells them they can either go play in the arcade, or leave and try to find a hotel off the strip that will take them in without being 21. The anger turns to tears. The security guard is unmoved. Rich scammemy injury lawyer's kid was in my class in HS. Goes to college, mid-size school in the Midwest, and gets plastered drunk. Parents bought him and his friends alcohol since freshman year, so nothing new. And Ross says he has to write him up for alcohol in the dorms. Punches 2 Ross. Then gets cops called on him and knocks a cop's tooth out. Long story short, his parents have to drive back 6 to 7 hours after one day to get him, and he's not even allowed to leave the state until his hearing. Last I heard he's working at a fast food establishment. Freshman year of college, the guy across the hall from me is a spoiled rich kid from a big southern city. Old money clearly coming out his ass. A couple weeks into the second semester he and a buddy found a checkbook on the sidewalk. Stupid frockers decided to write themselves a check and cash it in the bank that the account is in. The teller immediately called the cops and they both got arrested. We talked the night he got arrested and he laughed and said his dad would take care of it, and everything would be fine. That weekend we met his dad as they moved everything out of the dorm since his dumb ass got expelled. Guess daddy didn't take care of it. In a country with high alcohol taxation, rich kids enter pub. Like 10 to 12 of them, throw card at bartender. Demanding shots. What would y'all like? Whatever lol. Dad is paying LMAO. Bartender pours double J. W. Blues for all the brats and some randoms that they treated. Brat with card had tears in his eyes when the tab came in. Dad's going to kill me. I did enjoy the free whiskey though. I knew one who apparently couldn't fathom how people live on a budget. We used to hang out a lot at her insistence, but she liked to eat at expensive places, whereas I'd have no issue having my meals somewhere cheaper. However, she kept pouting and insisting I stay. I said I couldn't unless she wanted to spot me. She didn't. I then walked her through the math and showed her that the cost of my meals with her, every day, totaled my entire wage for the month. She didn't stop pouting, but from then on I could eat by myself in peace. My best moment was when I got hired by a pair of Woodside CA parents to transition their horrible 18-year-old into the realities of real life, something that evaded both of them. My first action was to take away his platinum, limitless credit cards. He threw a tantrum that lasted several days. Where am I going to get money? Get a job. My parents will fire you. They didn't. When he realized that boundaries and budgets had been set in stone, and that he not only had to pay the bills, the rent, but taxes too, he headed straight to college to wait out the next 4 years. He is still a little jerk, but at least he has a job and an education now. I had a roommate my freshman year of college that came from an incredibly rich oil family from the Middle East. I remember him having the hardest time adjusting to not having someone else prepare him food. I remember waking up one morning and going to the kitchen and seeing him try to eat eggs and toast he had just prepared himself. He asked me how I normally prepare fried eggs because his tasted really crunchy. Turns out he had just cracked the egg hole into the pan and prepared it shell and all. I couldn't stop laughing but felt really bad for the dude. There was a kid in my school class who was a trust fund baby and he acted like it. He was picking on people one day just talking unnecessary shit and he called a girl a cow. She was overweight. He then got punched by a special education kid in class. And then when he contemplated retaliating against the special education kid, he then got punched by another student who was not special needs. He did not contemplating punching him. I knew a kid in high school whose parents were loaded. When he got his driver's license they bought him a $70,000 Mercedes. Within a month or two he totaled the car while driving drunk. Parents pulled strings to get him off the full weight of the DUI. And they bought him another $70,000 Mercedes. He overdosed on a shitload of drugs and booze when he was 23. He's dead. I knew this rich kid from high school that went off to college and partied every single night. His parents found out that he was failing basically all of his classes. So they secretly drove up early one Saturday morning with the spare set of keys to the car they had bought him and just drove off with the car. I knew a guy in high school who bragged that he didn't have to pay attention in school because, get this, his grandfather was a vice president of the corporation that supplied the cardboard for cereal boxes for General Mills. Real gravy train. Ya know, last I checked. Since deleted Facebook. He was still working at Best Buy 5 years after high school. Same job he had in high school. One of my college roommates told his parents the trip we were planning, that they were paying for, was $400 more expensive than it was so he could buy a really nice bong. In addition, they basically paid for everything he wanted. He had their credit card and ordered food on it at least once daily. He also would make $50 purchases off the card pretty regularly. Long story short, they found out he lied about the cost of the trip. For whatever reason they still paid and let him go. But after the trip he could not use their card anymore. This dude acted like he lived the hardest life of all time afterwards. But eventually sucked it up. He actually acts way less entitled now. It ended up having a lasting positive effect for him, even though he wouldn't admit it. Kid I knew won a cool million off a scratch ticket when he was 19. Acted like a big shot, arrogantly buying rounds of drinks for entire bars. Didn't do shit for 20 years. Then got the last check, alcoholic, no savings. No assets. No skills. He's now in and out of hospitals for alcohol poisoning and mental breakdowns. Lost his paper hat job, his GF, everything. That one Instagram model who got caught on video talking shit to a security guard at VidCon. Not only did the guard stand his ground and not let him in, because he wasn't famous enough to be given a pass and too rich to just buy one. But once the internet saw the video the guard ended up with more followers than the kid. Classmate in college failed his course. Partied for a year with daddy's money. Never studied, ever. Thing is, Inheriting his father's construction company, 2 quarries, a fleet of trucks and equipment, depended on him manning up and passing the class. All he had to do was learn the basics of mechanical diagnostic and repair, and be set for life. Middle school. A classmate is on the phone, when most of us didn't have cell phones, screaming at her stepdad, "Patrick, I need the $500. I need to buy new jeans." She did not get the $500. But she did later get to be a teen mom, so that was cool. Edited to add. She wanted multiple pairs of jeans. This was when bootcut, skinny, and bedazzled jeans were all equally popular at our school. She was not going to spend the $500 on one pair. Local rich kid had his SUV parked in a no parking area at a club. Tow truck shows up to tow it away and the kid goes ballistic. "Do you know who my dad is?" etc. To the driver. After a minute or two of this, the passenger gets out of the tow truck and is a full patch Hell's Angel. The biker politely tells him it doesn't matter who he thinks his family is and the SUV is towed away. Administration and faculty at a university refused a substantial offer of endowment money from a couple that wanted their son enrolled as an art major. Their son couldn't meet the minimum scholastic entrance requirements and he had little aptitude for art. Still, with their millions, he thought money would buy his way to an easy degree. As an art major, he was dumbfounded to receive a notice of non-admittance. Nothing too serious. But I taught at an international school in Africa and we would take the high school students camping 1 week out of the year. Many of these kids are not used to camping at all and have never even taken public transport. They have full-time drivers bring them to school and pick them up. Some of them are from very wealthy and politically connected families, having to set up tents and get dirty, not be able to shower every day, and sleep on hard ground is new to them. Some of them actually love it, but others are sad, pathetic wretches the entire week. My friend didn't realize that people did not have elevators in their homes. Not much of a story, but last Christmas I was with my family and my more wealthy aunt and uncle were also there. Their daughter, my cousin, was about 15, was complaining about how now she has to walk a whole half-mile to the train station to go to her snobby private school in the city. Now one of my other cousins is a vet and he lost his right leg in Iraq and has a prosthetic below his knee. I don't know if she knew that, but somewhere in her rant he just looks at her, pulls up his pant leg, and doesn't say anything. She shut up after that, but it was pretty funny to watch. At a Starbucks, and she thought apparently people gave her parents free drinks and such for her all these years. Like the cashier told her the total and she said, "Wait, I don't get it for free?" She never realized her parents swiping their cards all those years was paying for her things, I guess. I went to a very rich, predominantly white Catholic high school. One moment I remember was the wind absolutely being taken out of a girl's sails when I explained to her why our school dominated the area's skiing, golf, and equestrian competitions, but never anything else. For a lot of kids in that school, the moment they learned they were rich was the moment they learned that most girls don't have their own horses growing up. I grew up with rich kids and still keep in touch with a few of them. One guy's father owned the most prestigious law firm in town. He said his life changed the moment he called his father from jail. The second time it happened, his father said, "Well, sorry to hear you got arrested. Good luck." Then hung up. He said getting locked back into his cell was the singular moment that completely turned his life around. Semester. The semester at sea. It costs $25,000 plus to spend a semester learning about the oceans on a boat that sails port to port. They also tell you no drugs or alcohol. One of my students didn't listen and brought aboard pop brownies. The staff found out 10 days in. They dropped her off at the first port. No credits, no refund. $25,000 down the drain for pop brownies. Probably on the BBC yesterday when Prince Andrew got the shit kicked out of him for an hour about his association with Epstein. She would take days off of school to going on shopping trips with her rich mother. When the recession hit, it was discovered her mother's business partner was embezzling for years, and consequently the mansion she grew up in was on the depressed real estate market for years. Rich guy in our college dorm thought he was untouchable cause his dad was some NFL player from the 90s and had not blown all his money yet. He would get freshman girls blackout drunk and then film himself having sex with them and then show all his buddies the next day or so. Well, one buddy was not as close as he thought and went to the Raw, who then went to campus police and then real police. It was a fun night watching the parking lot fill up with the bored cops on duty that night and haul his ass out of the dorms while they went and gathered his evidence. I drive Uber on the weekends in a college town. Teacher during the week. I had a car full of college students who grew up in this small town. Firstly, they felt entitled enough to protest that my 4-seater SUV could fit 9 of them if they squeezed in. I fit 6 and 2 in the trunk. Sorry kid. I dropped them off and as I'm about to leave for my next trip queued up. Rich kid says, "Oh snap. I need to meet. Insert girl's name here. At the bar." To which I answer, "Sorry. There's another rider I need to pick up. Kid flashes a $20 in my face and just jumps into my car. I put on the e-brake and let the kid scream all he wanted. Told him there is an order that this works in and money can't skip it. Kid cried and cursed me out all while I'm laughing my socks off. Hope he learned something. When my first roommate had to ask me how to vacuum. Not how to use it. Literally how to vacuum the floor. She'd never used one. I was one of those spoiled rich kids. And let me tell you, it leaves you with no social awareness. One of my best friends in high school once brought me to his home. I had to open my fat mouth and call his home trash-filled due to his stepfather's tendency to hoard. His mother was within and politely asked for me to never visit again. I lost a good friend that day and have regretted it ever since. Rich kid. You frocking twat can't do sit to me. My dad's a lawyer. Some dude. Do you know who I am? Rich kid. Why would I? Some dude. Good. Bam. Right in the kisser. A rich friend of mine got pregnant at 15 and it apparently was my fault because I was giving her boyfriend advice. She slept with the guy the first said was cute. I never told her to get together with him. Edit. I was giving her relationship advice, not giving her actual boyfriend advice, and she didn't have one at the time. I had a kid in my senior class of high school who was an absolute frocking his hole. His dad owned a construction company, and they had contracts with our city, so they did very well for themselves. He was always talking down to anyone he wanted, but also he got his ass kicked a few times cause of it. Well, he never did schoolwork, was always getting kicked out of class for being a disturbance, etc. His dad one day came to the school, walked into his classroom and berated the frocking shit out of him because the counselor told him that he had absolutely no way of graduating, and needed to enroll in a secondary school. He took his car keys, his phone, and all the allowance he had given him minus money for the bus. He left school a couple weeks later, and I believe he moved. Acquaintance in college got pulled over in Baltimore transporting an ungodly amount of weed from New York to campus, DC area. Clearly intent to distribute. He called his mom, an attorney in California, begging for help. She said she'd get back to him when her offices opened on Monday. So Hot Shot spent the weekend in Baltimore City Jail. I think he just got less dumb about his behavior. Successful business owner now. My cousin is a senior in HS and the #1 tennis player in the state for his league or whatever and has a scholarship. His dad is rich and pays for anything he wants at any time. His dad just bought him a new Lexus for his 18th birthday and my cousin decided to go 45 through a school zone and gets pulled over and tries to tell the cop he's a star athlete, calls up his dad and tries to get out of it that way. The cop had none of it, slapped him with reckless, negligent driving and they took his license. Most satisfying thing I've even seen happen to him. Knew a kid whose dad owned several businesses. His dad would pay for college, begged him to go, buy him whatever car he wanted that he would always ruin, and would hire him at his company, which was the only real job that he would ever have. He just assumed that he would always be taken care of and take over the businesses one day. Nope. He turned into a heroin addict and was in and out of rehab until his family cut him off. He is out in Arkansas somewhere with his addict girlfriend now and his family stopped bothering to care. Friend of a friend totaled his brand new luxury car by driving 2 to 3x the speed limit drunk, plowed into some metal railings, and destroyed the front of several storefronts in a plaza. Fortunately, this was the early hours of the morning and nobody was around to get hurt. He got out of his car and decided to just walk it off as he didn't care about the several $100,000 that the car cost. Cops found him, arrested him. Shocked Pikachu face when he realized that you can't bribe the cops as easily in Canada. Got deported because he was on a student visa. When I was 16, my wipe his ass with money type rich friend decided he was going to cook for me and another friend of ours. We had no idea he had never cooked before in his life. To start off with, he picked up an onion. I was on my phone on YouTube, so I stopped paying attention to him. 5 minutes later, he just goes, why do they have to wrap these so tight? He was talking about the onion. I know it doesn't really answer your question. He never got hit. He's an Instagram influencer now with a whopping 800 followers. He still has enough money to not work a day in his life. I teach at a public high school, though it's in a fairly nice area, because we serve a number of nearby towns. We have a diverse population ranging from poor to very wealthy. The lunch monitor told me that on the first day last year, a freshman girl sat at her table and ate nothing for the period. At the end of the period, she came up to him and complained that no one came to take her order. Me and my sister grew up fairly well off. When my sister went off to college, my parents made her work a job for spending money. My mom got a furious call from my sister yelling that some people were taking money out of her paycheck, and that she was going to call them, and get her money back. It was state-fed taxes. My mom just said, "Good luck with that, and welcome to the real world." Rich kid in my neighborhood had parents who owned the grocery store. Always bragged about his money and how rich they were. Walmart put them out of business shortly after I graduated high school. I hate Walmart. but they certainly shut that kid the frock up. Playing any online pay-to-win game and destroying that pay-to-win player. Like it's nothing, and hearing them talk shit. That's special. And it's also a beautiful moment that can never truly be taken away. I dated a girl in college who told me a story about her first day in public school. She had been to expensive private schools and finishing schools as a child. Then they moved her sophomore year of high school. She went to the local high school, which was actually a decent mix of rich and poor kids with a big heap of middle-class kids. So it was a school where students actually got a good social education. Her first day there, she was terrified of black and Hispanic kids and ate her lunch in the bathroom. Eventually she found friends from the same social class as her and it got easier for her. But for the first few weeks she really had to learn what it was like to be around people that didn't have a maid and a driver. Kid offered to pay school security not to call the cops on him for smoking weed and doing coke in the bathroom, and he caught mad charges LMAO. She was clearly and in no uncertain terms told personally by the dean to leave a specific female student alone. She was also warned that there would be harsh consequences if any harassment continued, and that under absolutely zero circumstances would she be allowed in or near said student's room. 10 days later, she was found with an accomplice inside that student's room. She was banned from entering any student housing for the remainder of her academic career and threatened with suspension for a year. Daddy may have paid her tuition and bought her books. Too bad he couldn't buy her some frocking sense. Realizing they needed a job even though they really don't need a job. When that affluenza twat who didn't learn a damn thing and his twat mother got nailed. Ethan Couch. That was pretty great. 1. I was in the 7th grade. Spoiled rich kid was making fun of another student. I don't think the other student was poor, but had a definite grunge look going on. Spoiled rich kid was making fun of the other kid's shoes, which were kind of ratty. After 30 seconds or so, the other kid had enough and just starting beating the shit out of the rich kid in the hallway. A friend of the rich kid trying to jump the other kid from behind. Other kid's buddy jumped in and beat the shit out of that guy. I think the rich kid's shoe fetish had something to do with how he had feelers and the other kid didn't. I know a guy whose dad is the CEO of a fairly large company get denied an internship at said company because he couldn't pass a drug test. Cool guy though. Had a college friend who ended up with a trust fund. Father was very wealthy through a product he sold to hotels and specifically Coca-Cola. Only trust fund stipulation was he had to either be in school or hold a job of his choosing. He was in school for 10 years and sells cars for a living now. Rich kid in high school whose parents bought him new cars every time he wrecked one. Let him throw wild parties at their lake house, etc. He was asking why I didn't show up to a particular party. You know, the whole, don't be a fussy, routine. I told him my parents had said no, I couldn't go. He laughed and made a comment about my parents being overly strict. I just said earnestly, nah man, they're not mean. They just care about me. He laughed, but I definitely saw a flash of understanding in his eyes before that. I didn't witness this personally, but I went to a private high school with a lot of rich families. I knew this kid that came from one of those families and because of it thought he was untouchable. One night he was out driving with some people and he got pulled over by the cops. He decided it would be funny to get out of the car and run down the street as fast as he could. The cops of course start chasing after him and after a few blocks he stops, turns around, and says, "Psych." The cops did not find that funny at all and tackled him to the ground and arrested him. Nothing truly serious came of it because his parents had the money to handle it, but still getting tackled by the police was a pretty hard hit of reality. Me and my friend got to know a really rich girl. She has one of the best houses in town. She once called us to dine with her family and we accepted. While we were sitting at THTW living room she complained that her shoes, Nikes, were uncomfortable and asked her mom to get new ones. She then turned to my friend and told her that they should go together, because she always wears the same old shoes and they are off-season. My friend told her that she couldn't afford a second pair so she wore those. Her mom ended up gifting my friend a brand new pair of shoes. They are kind people, and the girls has starting to become more aware of how much fortunate she is. That spoiled 15-year-old breach on Dr. Phil who complained that $1,000 a month allowance was too little, and whined about not getting a specific expensive car for her birthday. She was getting a Mercedes but that wasn't good enough. And when Dr. Phil said, "You need a job," she started to cry and said, "I don't want a job, it's so much work."